Interesting question. I mean, basically, the individual entrepreneur is at the heart of the entrepreneurial process, and therefore also closest to the entrepreneurial action and to success and failure, and therefore making him or her the most interesting research subject, at least for me. And I focus generally, just to have a brief intro, I focus generally on all those aspects or characteristics of the individual entrepreneur that make him or her kind of special, such as personality, but also emotions and well-being, health, and as you mentioned, and entrepreneurial behavior. And for those aspects, for those elements, I actually explore the related matter of developing ventures and generating success for ventures. And what excites me most currently is the third element, and that is the entrepreneur's mental health. I believe that mental health is one of the most important topics in today's society, and it represents something much more fundamental in the entrepreneurial context. And in line with Dean Shepard and Holger Patzelt, I strongly believe that the mental health of entrepreneurs can actually facilitate or obstruct entrepreneurship from delivering value. And that's the reason why I focus on it. And you asked the question, how does mental health relate to entrepreneurial action? And let's talk practice first. I mean, that's something different than research. But as I'm also an academic director of an executive education program where we work with entrepreneurs for 10 weeks and 1.5 years, I actually believe and actually have seen that that what I found from working with them, from multiple entrepreneurs, is that without taking care of your mental health, you're doomed to face decline, both business-wise, but also personal in terms of well-being. And there's an entrepreneur who said about his entrepreneurial endeavor that actually it's like riding a lion. People think, wow, this guy is brave, while he thinks, how the hell did I get on a lion and how do I keep from getting eaten? And from our executive education, we actually know that there are a lot of entrepreneurs that sustain their mental health through meditation. And these entrepreneurs are in good company with Elon Musk and with Richard Branson, despite having mental health conditions, also investing in their mental health. And so that's the practical side. But from a research side, and this actually sparked my interest from a research side, we also know already that mental health shapes entrepreneurial action in terms of it helps entrepreneurs broaden the range of ideas they have for their business, also strengthen the focus on opportunities that they actually want to act upon. Second, mental health is a prerequisite for learning, which is positively associated with entrepreneurial action. We also know that entrepreneurship is highly demanding in terms of cognition, so that the quality of entrepreneurs' judgments typically becomes more and more dependent on aspects of mental health, such as positive affect, that then again facilitates entrepreneurial decision-making. And in addition, mental health is a resource, is human capital, such as education, and it helps you support, it helps you attain, get other resources, other utilitarian resources, such as social capital, that actually facilitate entrepreneurial action. And when talking about mental health, however, and entrepreneurial action, we must not forget the other side of the coin, and a side that I personally find super fascinating, and their study being important for individuals, their loved ones, societies, and economies. And that is, there's an increasing body of evidence, as you certainly know, and are interested in this yourself, is that certain mental health conditions actually constitute a strength in entrepreneurship. And indeed, on the individuals with mental health conditions, they actually appear to be overrepresented in the entrepreneurial population. So there are more people with mental health conditions in the entrepreneurial population than in the general population. And so what does this tell us regarding the link between mental health conditions and entrepreneurial action? So there must be one, and this link exists, I guess, because of the traits associated with mental health conditions and the characteristics of entrepreneurship, making people better prepared for the tasks central to the entrepreneurial process. Also by specifically by broadening individuals' attention. ADHD, for example, can facilitate the recognition of new opportunities and foster the application of entrepreneurial orientation, which is critical to action, at least to successful action. And also because of the hate and sensation seeking and the lack of remediation, ADHD facilitates action under uncertainty, which is characteristic for entrepreneurship, and can also foster entrepreneurial success if it's combined with passion for developing and passion for founding, just to get it right, because that would be embarrassing. I mean, that's a study that we recently conducted and got published. So let's get this right. I hope I did. And furthermore, individuals with certain mental disorders, such as bipolar disorder or ADHD, they experience unusually positive affect, and that is also related positively to entrepreneurial action. And finally, there are some entrepreneurs that are characterized, well, that have dyslexia, and they appear to use compensatory strategies developed early on in their lives to successfully delegate, communicate, and motivate employees with their mental health condition, therefore also affecting clearly entrepreneurial action. It's clear that COVID is impacting all our mental health, so not only the mental health of entrepreneurs, but with remote work, closer linkages between family and business sphere, and economic uncertainty, both employees and all occupational groups, and also people without jobs, even more those, are affected by COVID in terms of mental health, and largely negatively. At least that's what we see from we conducted a longitudinal study started exactly a year ago, and covered it every 3 months. Again, life satisfaction, work satisfaction of people, their resilience as a trade, as a state, and certainly also stress experiences and mental health in general. And we clearly see a significant decline in terms of well-being, and also in terms of mental health. That's among entrepreneurs in the UK. So we did not publish it yet. We are just about to figure out what's the most interesting theoretical angle, and then see what we can do about it. But clearly we see a downward spiral. And interestingly enough, also is that when it comes to mental health, we tend to focus, and also I in my research, to focus on the entrepreneur, because I deem him or her to be the most interesting subject, and that has the biggest influence on, at least on his or her life, and on the business. But there's the entrepreneur isn't alone. There is at least co-founders, and in very many cases also a spouse or a partner, friend whatsoever, that actually supports him or her. And we see in our survey, where we asked for family support, that it seems that the spouse or the family as such clearly can downplay, can minimize the negative COVID consequences on mental health for the entrepreneur. So I think this is something that we need to also consider in the future, exploring dyadic analysis. But I think you will ask me that question anyways later on, what the future brings about. But I personally think, yes, COVID, I do not only think, but I see it in the data that COVID decreased entrepreneurs' mental health. I see it also in practice. Last week we had a day full of executive education, and I did loving kindness meditation with those entrepreneurs, and normally they are reluctant and just laugh and think they don't have time for that, but they all participated there. And interestingly enough, 2 of them also were pretty emotional, and they then asked me all about those home pages and links where they can find it, because they want to practice it further. And I think this interest, that's potentially also because of the things COVID brought about, the uncertainty that increased, which was already there always for entrepreneurs, but now it's even more difficult. Good question. I mean, the field is not that new or that young, right? For nearly half a century, researchers have devoted resources to understanding differences, mainly in physical health and well-being, job or work satisfaction, between the self-employed and other occupational groups. However, and more recently, there has been growing interest in mental health, I would say like about the last decade or 15 years. So it's growing, and that's great. But it also means that there are many people that are already publishing in that area. And yeah, and your question is actually a tricky one as regards name dropping of prominent scholars and interesting scholars. And as we do not have, I hope I can now maneuver myself out of it. As we do not have that much time today, I'm going to name, I guess, a couple of colleagues that I have worked with, and they therefore directly inspired me. And that's clearly, first and foremost, Johan Wiklund. Concerning the dark side, also Daniel Lerner and Phil Fan, Dean Shepard and Holger Patzelt, Andreas Rauch, clearly, and also Matthias Fink, Timo Dimov, Michael Frese, and the group around, and including certainly Roy Turek. And when it comes to the bright side, I guess, who inspired me is Ute Stefan and also Heibo Cho, Teemu Kautinen and Ewald Kiebler, Joachim Vincent and Charlotte Siren. So you see, I need to mention also a few people that work at my university, and it's also Dietmar Griechnig and Thomas Zellweg and many more. But to be honest, actually all scholars that that published their work on mental health and mental health conditions in entrepreneurship, which is by far not easy. I know myself, I already cashed in or received a lot of rejections on those topics. Well, all those researchers that publish their work, to me, they are amazing people, and they inspire my work, and they inspire, I guess, the whole field. And I'm looking forward to what's about to come. Well, I think, and it was also mentioned during Babson, that entrepreneurship research tends to focus on understanding the good in entrepreneurship. And as Dean Shepard once said, this is clearly understandable because we as researchers, we assume that our findings can inform entrepreneurs, their families, stakeholders, and also policy about how to facilitate processes and practices to generate more benefits through entrepreneurship. At the same time, however, we know that a large proportion of entrepreneurs is not doing well at all in terms of mental health, so that research limited to the good seems to poorly reflect the population of entrepreneurs and the wider entrepreneurship phenomenon. So I think that if research largely continues to largely focus on the bright sides of entrepreneurship, it has little to say to a large proportion of the population, including entrepreneurs, their families, and the broader environment in which entrepreneurs are embedded. So one suggestion would be, or one recommendation would be, or something that at least I tell myself I should do, is to focus more on the dark sides of entrepreneurship. And with dark sides, I also mean that there are people, as we know, necessity entrepreneurs that start a business because they have no other option of making a living. However, it's if we want to really help them, then actually we should look at how to make them turn them, what makes them turn them into opportunity entrepreneurs, so that they also can find fulfillment and flourishing in entrepreneurship. And first, so it's a dark side at the beginning, but ideally we could make it a bright side. So you see, I still believe in I still believe in the good and the movies where there's a happy ending. And in addition, so apart from that, so first thing, focus on the dark side and don't ignore them. And the second thing is, in addition, I think for entrepreneurship research to continue to be interesting, it's important to challenge conventional wisdom. And this can be achieved by exploring for whom, when, where, and why the good becomes bad and the bad becomes good. So there are many entrepreneurially desirable characteristics that are desirable in any job and in any walk of life. And they are valuable for entrepreneurial effectiveness in many, if not the most circumstances. Yet the same characteristics could be counterproductive in particular environments or with particular stakeholders, such as investors or business partners, who do not regard them as favorable for a meaningful or sustainable orientation that potentially focuses on other things than just Darwinism or money generation. So for example, if we take the example of a positive affect, such as entrepreneurial passion, then this is an aspect of, could also be seen as an aspect of mental health, and that clearly is necessary in the startup stage, and also if you want to grow your business, because it provides you with persistence and sustained focus, which is super. At the same time, such intense positive feelings that may be appropriate for your business may be inappropriate for your family sphere, because it may lead to work-family conflicts, ultimately leading to loneliness in the private sphere, and that could be problematic. And we also observe a similar phenomenon for the for characteristics that are socially undesirable, at least it's the mental health conditions. At least for most individuals in our society, those mental health disorders are stigmatized, and those preconditions might actually compromise occupational and family effectiveness in general, but actually enhance functioning entrepreneurship. So to the extent that and under what conditions such generally dark characteristics might actually lead to positive entrepreneurial outcomes, there is an interesting opportunity to push the boundaries of existing theories and provide new and relevant insights, including the notion of equifinality of entrepreneurial endeavors and also plurality of logics of entrepreneurial action. And then there is a last point when it concerns theory, is that, I mean, it's all about context, as we just said. It's first the phenomenon, then the context, but also beyond the context, I think, where the effectiveness of bright or dark sides depends on the particular environment. I think we could also see some similar countervailing effects when based on the intensity of one's characteristics. So modest levels of bright characteristics are good, but extreme levels, as it goes with passion, right? They may imply impairments for well-being on the personal side, but also on the business side. And I believe that the exploration of extremely high levels of bright characteristics in conjunction with the specific entrepreneurial outcomes, such as sustainability orientation, societal value creation, innovation, will enable us to understand potentially detrimental influences of variables that have been generally viewed as positive in entrepreneurship. And as such, the study of extreme levels is also important in generating new theoretical insights and relevant practical implications. And there was a last point, I think, that you asked, and that was the methods. And clearly, I mean, research on mental health and especially on well-being has been dominated by quantitative cross-sectional studies and self-report most of the time that tested theory that was borrowed from psychology in most cases. And we see now there's an increase in multi-method applications, in newer tools, in creative designs of research. And I think that the time is ripe for diversity of research methods to support theory building work, such as more longitudinal studies, also given the central role of mobile, social, and also wearable computing in people's lives. Researchers can further use mobile systems in conjunction with experience sampling to actually overcome the bias associated with retrospective reports, and also develop a deeper understanding of the situational advantages and challenges associated with mental health conditions in entrepreneurship. And certainly, as it concerns the causal link between mental health conditions and action, I would love to see more experiments. We would all, I guess, love to see that. And you perhaps also know the study that Yuval Engel did, where he experimentally explored the loving kindness meditation among entrepreneurs. I mean, that's actually super cool, and I would love to see more work of that. And also, you see in executive education, those things people then remember and they recall. It's more applied to them rather than just survey. Well, I have to admit that I myself do surveys most of the time, but I mean, it's okay to criticize yourself, right? And then there are ample opportunities, as mentioned before, to in the study of mental health conditions to go for dyadic analysis using actor-partner interdependence models on entrepreneur spouse or entrepreneur venture capitalist or entrepreneur co-founder diets. So many opportunities, a lot of things have already been done, but now it's about time to start exploring mechanisms and use mental health as a moderator mediator and focus on the aspects that we just discussed before. So yeah, this research definitely remains exciting.